Hello, back on track with the dream today, and as you might be able to tell, there's basically no new music at all, but there has been an awful lot of work done on the track. I've spent a long time on this piece of music with no real visible evidence that anything's happened, but what has happened is the bass line has been completely re-recorded, and I've gone for like a really lazy kind of grunge sort of dragging your heels sort of sound. So I think I'm pretty much there with the bass line. I'm really enjoying that, and I've also been concentrating very hard on trying to make every drum sound as good as I possibly can. This is a focus on this particular song that I want to pull as much back as possible, but make everything work as hard as possible, and that means concentrating on, is that particular sound allowed to be there? Is it good enough? And so I want to talk about that process today. I think it's really interesting. I'm going to play the whole thing as it is, even though there's no more music yet, so that you can get an idea of the space that I'm trying to develop with this thing. And I'm working in, I'm trying to stretch the thing to make it be a full song without getting too carried away about throwing loads of random music on it that's if it's not ready. Let's see what we've got. And then that bit that I've cycled, that's the loop round. So basically, there's no more linear progression of this song that will be done. I want it to be literally that static. Coming out of that loop, we just come straight back into. And depending on how long I want the piece of music to be and what other music fits in, it will either be 2 or 3 repeated sections of that. A really simple linear strategy with this song. I don't want loads of complex changes and choruses and bridges and pre-choruses. It's not that kind of thing. I want it to be a very stable structure with this bass absolutely thumping in the background and then the music over the top. Don't want to get too up myself or anything, but I'm aiming for that sort of, the Miles Davis "So What" sort of thing, where you've got a couple of chords and you base an entire song on it, and it's the melodies over the top that make the interest in the song. The structure itself is almost embarrassingly simple, and you find your interest from elsewhere. So that's the idea. Now, the bass line, as you can hear, is really lazy, and because there were almost slurs as I was deliberately holding multiple notes open at the same time, I found that in a couple of places I was getting a little bit too lazy, and so I've just had to introduce a little bit of, you can see, dynamic compression on the EQ is the way that I've decided to handle it. Let's have a listen. You can hear when it comes down to hit the E, you've just got a little bit of a boom, because that's right where that secondary harmonic is spiking, and I think that's the one that's causing the trouble, so I'm just pulling it back. I must confess I've never used dynamic EQ on Pro Q before. People talk about multiband compressors doing this kind of job, and they're really fundamentally the same thing, but I thought I'd give Pro Q an opportunity to work at it, because I knew exactly what I wanted to cut, and I wanted to pull back more when it's really emphasized. So that's that. And then I was just hearing a little bit of mud, so I've just brought out a little bit of this kind of 350-ish sort of thing to take away some of that darkness. Without all of the rest of the music being there, I don't know, really, I probably shouldn't be doing that, quite frankly. I shouldn't be doing this much EQ work on a piece of music that's only got drum and bass, but the idea is to get that structure absolutely solid. Future Electronica is the expansion from which the original drum kit came, but then I'm just basically replacing so many sounds that there's hardly any of it left, and just auditioning every sound and saying, you know, how do I want my kick to sound? And it's really simple. But the reason I plumped on this particular sound is that it works really well with the bass line. So it's fine on its own. But you still get that little. Whereas a fuller kind of boom, more bass sound was really just utterly occupying the same space as that big fat open E that I'm plucking. So I wanted something with a little bit more that kind of pokes its head above that. And I don't know what I'm going to do in terms of sidechain compression to get those two things really sitting comfortable with each other. I don't want to duck the bass to get out of the way of the kick drum, because I think the bass is the dominant sound. That's the thing that should be there all the time. So I don't really know how I'm going to do anything with that yet. So that's it. The guitar sound is completely fine when it comes in. It sounds great, but I can't go those 16 bars with just bass. No idea what's going to go there, and I don't think I've finished fiddling with the drum sounds yet. I wanted to get something recorded in terms of my progress, because this is where my head's at the moment, and I've never really spent this much time at the beginning of the writing of a song focusing on purely bass and drums with no other sound, and I don't know how far I can take that before it just becomes absurd. You know, I've got to start putting the song over the top of it to find out where these things are going to fit. But I'm enjoying myself, so, you know, I'm going to carry on until I get bored. Unusual approach, but once again, it just goes to show that every time you start writing a new song, approach it from a different perspective, and you're going to find new things to interest you. It's all about maintaining my own level of interest, you know, doing things that make me happy. And if that means I spend 3 weeks working on a drum sound and I don't get bored, fine, no problem with that at all. I've got no schedule other than the one that I set for myself, so this is what I'm choosing to do. I seem to have to constantly remind myself to enjoy the process. It's the journey that's everything, and that's what I'm trying to share with these episodes. It's all about the process and doing what's making you happy at the time. Thanks very much for watching the episode. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and I'll see you for the next one.